So what I'd like to do is invite the other speakers now to come and join me in for a panel discussion. I'd like you in the audience to remember that we said part of the rules of the game is participation. So
Nice.
I'm looking for you to ask some really smart
Nice
questions.
presentation.
I'm also looking for you to allow me just to extend this session a little bit. So we're going to break at about 10 past 12. So I think we've got a great opportunity to really delve into some of the issues here. So that means you'll have about an hour, 5 minutes for lunch rather than an hour and 15 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah, it's better to, this is where the action is. We can eat later, can't we? Yeah? Great. So, okay, thank you very much for that. Now, can I just have a quick show of hands, particularly from this side of the room, because I know you're warmed up now. Fantastic. There's someone at the back. There's 2. Any more offers on 2? There's 3. Okay. Wow. Well, how are we doing over here? Okay, we've got Helena. That's fine. That's good. Anybody else? No, you're just scratching your hair. Okay, that's all right. Okay, so if we can get the microphone over in that direction, and let's get the audience. Let's get your questions out. So we'll take that cluster of 3. So please be brief, and we'll take it as all 3 questions, and then we can answer them depending. So first question, please.
Yes, my name is Johansson, and I work as a researcher at Chalmers University here in Gothenburg. And I'm also working in the Mr. Carbon Exit project, which Håkan mentioned. And one of the questions we are thinking hard about in that project is, so here today we'll be talking a lot about the first 50% emission reduction. So now our projects we try to think about what about the rest, the remaining 50%. So, and also we come back to the steel and the cement often when it comes to buildings and infrastructure. So my question is, U.S. procurers, how can you engage in, so to handle the remaining 50%, we have to do something about primary production of steel and cement, and that will involve technical change and large investments. How can you as procurer involve in that?
Okay,
process?
so let's hold that, and maybe Håkan, you could be thinking about that, and maybe also Ingeborg, from your perspective, taking it to the next level around procurement. So, and the other question, please.
Hi, Lara Young from Costain. My question was around, we've mentioned a few times being able to challenge and our industry being quite traditional. So it's more a behavioural change. How do we influence actually the behaviours to change and actually challenge our clients, challenge our supply chain?
Okay, excellent. And so I'm now going to say Ian and Rebecca start to think about that question, so we share that. And then there was one other question just there. Is it still there? There wasn't a question. Okay, so there was Helena at the front just here. So let's just take that question as well, and then it's all done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask,
your name and who you work for?
Sorry, it's Helene Pantelidou from Arab. So we talked a lot about carbon reduction. We're talking about a whole life carbon reduction. So I would like to ask particularly the 2 projects that were mentioned. First of all, did you consider in the I won't pronounce this correctly, Richtwasserstaat case, how you could potentially influence, because there's a lot of carbon in the user of a road in particular. Did you consider how you could potentially influence through the actual construction or the design, how you could influence the user carbon? And the next question would be...
You're having 2?
It's the same question, sorry, more or less. So it's great that you could demonstrate, a capital carbon reduction, but from the little I know about stations, is carbon is 50-50 between capital and operational, almost, or could be more. So any thoughts around reducing through design, early stages of design, the operational carbon of the station template you discussed? I stop.
Okay, so why don't we just deal with that right from the start around the user utilization of carbon versus the design. So, particularly on the road schemes, is there any thought to where the opportunities are? Maybe Ingeborg, maybe there's a response to Helena's question.
On the user side of the car, we didn't really consider it, to be honest, during our project. But I think there's a catch, because during construction we reduced the speed of of the cars, so it will be more efficient. We reduce it to 90 kilometers an hour or 70. So no, but it's a good thinking. I think for the carbon reduction on the cars, we really aim for these smart solutions, smart mobility solutions.
And what about you, Rebecca? Is the tunnelling effect, wind resistance, are the trains going to be redesigned so they're more efficient? Have you been, is that part of the program, or what's the thinking?
We have a challenge there, because we are just building the metro. We are not maintaining the metro. As a collaboration, we've been talking about it, is a key factor for us to enable in our design, to challenge and to find those incentives to also think about the operation phase. But we have started, and there are ongoing discussions, for example, like the escalators, how we can reduce energy, and the ventilation system. There have been some improvements in the design when it comes to ventilation, because we're using it for the crows. But it is a challenge, yeah. But we are starting working with it.
So in a way, one moment, that goes back to that gentleman's first question around thinking about the holistic approach, the total piece. And then that brings in the behaviours, doesn't it, to get people to do that. So just maybe Håkan, before we go into the procurement side of things, is that philosophy, that approach being adopted by yourselves in terms of understanding the user carbon profile as well as the capital carbon?
Of course, when you're looking on the system, especially on the road side, the most of the emissions are in the user phase, on all the traffic that's going on the road. But the later you come in the project, the less you can do about that. That is something that you actually have to do when in the very early phase, when you actually are. What kind of measures? Is it really a road, or is it rail, or what is it that you are going to build? And you need actually to get there and to achieve these targets, you have to use policy instruments to change the behavior of the user. But we have a big responsibility responsible for planning the transport system, that we plan for the future transport system where you actually can achieve these goals, where with all these behavior changes that are needed.
So how do you implement that? How do you put that into, going back to that first question around the procurement strategies, how do you stimulate the value chain and the market to be thinking in that future scenario? It's a bit going back to maybe Ian's point about stimulating the producers of goods and services to be thinking about how they can contribute and inform the future design opportunities. How do you manage that?
I'm not sure if I understand what you're, because this is more in what I talk about is more in the planning phase and so on. It's a big responsibility for us. The question that we got from the beginning was more on how do we actually contribute so that we achieve the targets for the climate neutral infrastructure. And that, I think, we have to give very long-term goals and also requirements in the procurement. As the moment now we are looking on the requirements. What requirements should we have for 2030 and beyond, so that the industry and consultants and so on knows what will be there in 10 years or even more than that. That is one contribution that we can do, but there's a lot more to do to actually get there. You have to change the steel industry, you have to change the cement industry, and we cannot do that from our procurement. We can say that is important, but it's something for the whole society to contribute.
So you wouldn't even consider giving out a signal that says...
Yeah, of course.
You can give signals, yeah?
Yeah.
Without
we
making
do
it...
all the time.
Right,
yeah.
okay. So what's your signal today? What do you want? What do we need?
To get there, you have to have transformative changes in the whole value chain. So.
Okay, so Ian, how does a framework like SQL, how does that help in that process of getting to transformational change? And you know, for the projects that are using SQL, what really are those benefits?
I think the key thing about SQL and these frameworks is it gets the team working together. So it's not about one particular part of the value chain at any point. And I think the particular issue that we're talking about here about users utilization, I mean, one, I think when we were developing past 2080, I was part of the steering group, and it was a very controversial issue about where that sits within the boundary. But the reality is, as designers, if we start thinking out of the box about how we design things, there are actually opportunities. So, and this is where a holistic scheme like SQL can start to pull different things together. So if you think about cut-fill optimization, you've got the opportunity to think about how you can use that on the vertical alignment of a road to aid a user's fuel efficiency. Driving along the road. Same with railways as well, to a degree. So it's about getting that behaviour change and getting people thinking outside the box, and the whole structure of SQL as an award scheme of going up to excellent, hopefully outstanding in the next scheme as well, will sort of incentivise that. Well, we've got to do better here, haven't we? So
Rebecca, is what Ian's saying the benefits? What are you finding that? Are you using SQL as Ian's laid out?
Yeah, I would say so. We're using SQL as a tool to get all the different technical expertise together and talk about solutions. But also, it's a way for us to have a process for sustainability, because when we talk about sustainability, it means a lot of things for a lot of people. So we have to have a joint framework for what do we mean with sustainability in this project. And that's the main benefits from using SQL.
So if we go to the Netherlands, just a bit of clarity around this certification 1 to 5. So in SQL and other tools, and past 2080 as well, it's about demonstrating that leadership, knowing that you understand your footprint, if you like, around carbon. Is that the same?
Yes,
in
the same.
Yeah?
Yeah, same. And at lower levels, you have to contribute with institutes with knowledge to reduce the footprint. So that is say, level 5.
Right, okay. So what is there an equivalent then? If you were to say in Holland we have this, I can't remember the name of it, but what's its equivalent elsewhere in Europe? Is there one?
Well, I cannot say.
Okay.
I think there's similar tools.
Right. And this whole approach to stimulating innovation,
yes,
and thinking about your future plans and how the market needs to respond
yes,
to the signals that Håkan's given us all today. Okay. How do you do that in Holland? Do you run competition? What is the mechanism? Is it at the project level, or do you do things well in advance of knowing your future pipeline of projects?
Well, how we try to, Holland, it's not that big. We have a couple of, say, around 7 large contractors. So together with them, we are learning. So every tender, we try to increase the bar. And one of our challenges is this functional specification, so to open up knowledge and from the market. And the other one, I was in this project, in this A6 project with the municipal, and they said, yeah, but we don't know our development scheme, we need flexibility. And I said, don't worry, I will write a breathing contract. So that's another thing. I mean, if you have the contract awarded after a tender where you are proud of, the world is changing. The world is changing faster and faster. So also there you can think of where we can leave a little bit room for finding out together, and it will also help your collaboration when not everything is written down in the contract. And I believe that's also a way of making a contribution on the CO2. So maybe you don't achieve it in the moment when you award a contract, but then you can also think of solutions in your contract to step it up during the time of the maintenance or operational phase of your contract.
Yeah, so building flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, that's really interesting. And do you have that in your projects in Sweden? That idea of flexibility?
I mean, we do not do this evaluating in the procurement phase. Instead, we have the requirements, and then we have a bonus models. And actually, when they giving their offer, they only have to say that, okay, we will fulfill this requirements, and then they work with this during the contract, and as an incentive, they know that they have this possibility to get a bonus. So therefore they can work with this all the time.
And does your current procurement adopt the principles of MEET, the most economically advantageous tender? Do you have that stipulation? So we're all doing it, yeah?
Yeah, it's MEET, yes.
Because I know across Europe that's not always the case, although it may be a European directive, but we do see in other parts that the MEET hasn't been adopted, which is disappointing, really, because that's all about the social value and the environmental and social benefits. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes left, so I'm really curious. What are we doing now? Is it 3-3 now? Because you had 2 questions. So it's like a football score, isn't it? So can we get to a basketball score and get a few more questions? Is there any more burning questions out there? There's a gentleman at the back. Anybody from this side? It's 4-3, by the way. And don't forget you're tweeting, yeah? Hashtag, are you going to do that? We need to go viral. So after lunch, if we're not going trending #1, I'm going to be very disappointed. I'm going to give you the red card. Remember what that looks like? It's painful. Okay, so please, sir.
Yes, hi. I'm John Nyberg from Skanska Sweden. And I'm really interested in the energy neutral infrastructure in Holland. Can you tell us a bit more about that? How do you calculate energy in the operation? And what contributes? Do you have solar panels or solar cells?
Yes, it's mainly solar panels. And with this Dubacalc tool, we award it with a maintenance period, roughly 20 years, and we are monitoring it. So there's one contract requirement. Every year he has to prove to us that he's within his CO2 budget. If he's not, he will get a penalty. So that's how we do it. And of course, it's all about energy reduction first. For instance, our tunnels, we have all these ventilators, redundant systems. So there the focus is really on first reducing the need, and then it's these days it's solar panels actually. Yeah.
So translating that into the Swedish Metro extension, how do you know that your theoretical designs going through the construction phase are delivering to the targets that have been set, or the contractual obligations that their contractors have given you? And do you have any financial incentives or penalties if there is related to performance?
We're just starting procurement contracts at the moment. We haven't put anyone contracts out there yet. But the aim is that the same process that I showed that we're using during the design phase, it will be used during the construction phase as well. And probably there will be some kind of target for the contract. At the moment, there are no incentives, but we are looking into that. But the main focus is that the contractor should have this process to find a baseline, do the reduction, and follow up the results.
And then an independent assessment's done to verify and check that, which could be part of SQL, could it or not, in the future? So we don't have too many different
Yeah,
systems.
well, I mean, SQL already has a big section on project management.
Yes.
So how is sustainability being incorporated into the project management philosophy? So that comes down to things like most economically advantageous tender, requirements into procurement and things like that. So we already cover some of those elements.
Yeah, nice.
Excellent. Okay, so I think we've had a really fascinating discussion. I think fantastic questions from the audience. You've woken up. Fantastic. Really, really good. No. And we do need to have these conversations where we just share and look at insight rather than pretend that we're all doing really well, because we've got some common issues that we need to solve, and it's all around that theme of collaboration. So I'd like you, the audience, to thank our panelists. And panelists, please make your way back down to the auditorium. Thank you.